Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining the show. And on this very nice day, well, it's a little rainy today in Illinois, and but been having some really nice weather. Indian summer, we call it. I don't know what Australia calls it, but we call it Indian summer. With the mild temperatures and everything, no rain. But now we're starting to get some rain. But the election is in 5 days, and that's 5 days from today, and it's getting tense in this country in the U.S. And I was just telling Andrew that he's from Australia, and I'm going to get into introducing him. But he's a nice, fine fellow, and I've had him on the show before, and he's done his fair share of being a first responder in the firefighters in New York, actually, and he ended up in Australia. Well, I'm just going to say, I hope that after this election, everything is fine, everybody's chilled out. I know the anticipation of everybody, and I can feel it, even with a lot of my guests that I talk to. They seem like not that they've lost their concentration. Some of them have, and they're thinking about what's going to go on and what's going to happen, who's going to win, and how's that going to turn out. And we're just for entertainment purposes only. We might just mention that, and I'll see how Andrew predicts, that winner, that outcome. My guest, Andrew Radziewicz, Radziewicz, and that's I keep saying that Wicks at the end. Is that correct?
Yeah, and just to keep it really easy, everyone growing up, everyone called me Andrew Raz. So because
Yeah.
no one could pronounce it, no one could remember the spelling and everything. So they just said, "Oh, Raz."
Oh, those firefighters, they'll call you anything, I guess.
That's it, man. The
It's just like
simplest way possible.
just like the military, any name pops up,
That's it.
like a drill sergeant, he says they mispronounced my name, my last name. And then I said, that's mispronounced, Sergeant. And he says, I'll pronounce it any way I want to.
That's right.
He said, you say it's Emmons? I said, I'm gonna call it Emma. How's that, buddy? That's how the military used to work, and not like that anymore. They pat you on the back even if you fail now. So I don't know. It's just a strange thing. In 1999, Andrew Radziewicz, Raz, was serving in the U.S. Coast Guard and had a life-changing UFO encounter with 20 other witnesses. This Nimitz-style encounter would eventually lead Andrew to meet Dr. Stephen Greer and learned the CE5 method with a little bit of cash in 2011. After meeting Dr. Greer, Andrew started to train with psychic medium Robert Hansen in Long Island, New York. After he was told by Mr. Hansen that he had the gift of being a psychic medium, since meeting with Dr. Greer, he has had dozens of 100% peaceful interactions with UFOs and ETs. Andrew has a unique gift and combines his psychic abilities and UFO contact all at the same time. He is a guest to show the connection between UFOs and the afterlife. In 2022, Andrew had his UFO videos professionally analyzed Roger Stankovic from MUFON, Australia, in a six-part documentary series on the Discovery Channel called Close Encounters Down Under. He will be featured in an upcoming three-part series on Amazon Prime called Contact, and is finishing up his book called Angels in the Firehouse. Release date to be soon or be announced. And I read a little bit on that, and it's an audio book. I guess maybe you're having it like that too, right? Andrew Raz. Andrew Raz, welcome to the show. And what's going on with you? What's new?
Pleasure to be here, Dave. So I know I was on your show in the past, so some people might remember me, but just
Mhm.
that was a great intro. And as well, so I was in the Coast Guard, then I was a New York City firefighter, and then I moved to Australia and I worked as a mortician in a funeral home for 4 years. So I did that until about COVID came, and then I went into mediumship full time, and then sharing the message about the experiences I've had as a psychic, a UFO contactee, and everything combined. And it's no coincidence, once again, we're in this position again where the election's coming up
Yeah.
and so much chaos, literally so much chaos is going on in the world, right? It's just crazy.
Yes. I just wondered, I know a lot of people are stressed about it. You hear these commercials. I even heard Governor Huckabee. Well, he's not a governor now. It was a governor twice, and he's selling this sleep medicine, that kind of helps you go to sleep. And he said, by golly, we need it now with this, with what's going on in the world and what's going on in our country with the election. He says it's hard to get a good sleep nowadays. Well, it doesn't bother my sleep, but when I'm awake, Andrew, I kind of think about what's going on in the world. And maybe you can throw a psychic thought about what's going on with Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, and then the US. All this, and all of the country, even Australia has had some political strife there, haven't they? Or they still do. Give us your overall impression of what's going on, Andrew.
It seems to be that there is a war on for our consciousness, for our emotions, I like to say. Like that literally there's a battle to control your feeling, your emotion, and whichever way you go. So you go to the polls, right? And you get to vote Republican, Democrat, or whatever party you want to choose. But still, they're emphasizing to go, right? Now, the right to vote does include the right not to vote. You don't have to.
Yeah,
It's your choice. And once again, you're fighting for freedom. I'm a veteran, you're a veteran. I don't, you want to vote or not, that's up to you, but you have a right to do that. And I know that just focusing, no matter which way it goes, whoever you're going for, there's so much energy and so much focus that's put on this, and people get really worked up. And it's scary, right? We've seen what's happened in the past,
right.
January 6th, other events that have happened, right, where people get really worked up and then it leads to someone getting harmed or losing their life. And the end result is the same. It's us against one another, right? Right versus left. And I really think that people would ask me, like, hey, who are you voting for? Or who do you support? I said, well, I'd like to see someone that didn't really care about what side, left or right, you're into. That's your own business, but was really for the people and us overall as humans.
Right.
And then I would fully support that person, that really was for us. So I think with all these events and all these things that are going on, it makes us learn a lot about each other and about, what we consider good versus evil. And I've done a lot of different types of jobs from between being a firefighter, military, working in a funeral home. I was an electrician for over 20 years on the side as well. So I've dealt with people a lot. I went through a couple hurricanes in New York and I helped repair people's homes as a firefighter and then an electrician. So I've seen people at their worst. And I never once asked them, hey, who did you vote for? Because if you didn't vote for the Republican, I can't repair your electrical work. No,
Yeah.
just like going into a fire, I wouldn't stop and go, hey, did they vote for Trump or Biden or Obama? Because if they didn't, I can't go in and save that little baby in there. No,
Yeah.
you get your butt in there and do your job.
Yes.
So, you know what I mean? When it comes down to it, I personally don't care. I'm here to just help one another. And I hope that we can learn and see the chaos and the energy that's being focused and what these people really want us to focus on is a lot of nonsense. I think we need to take care of one another, Dave.
Yeah, I think they're throwing those little shiny objects out for us to look at while other things are going on behind the scenes. We don't
Yes.
know what's going on behind the scenes, and it's happening all over the world. You have England, I know, Australia, Canada. There's been political, uprising. This is for entertainment purposes only. I don't know the exact thing that's going on behind the scenes. I'm not the Wizard of Oz, and I know Andrew would probably say the same thing. I mean, he's a psychic. He might be able to get closer than I do about how he feels about what's going on in the world. But I've heard people say it's a fight between good and evil, and then I just heard Andrew say it's a fight for our consciousness. I'd rather believe that the consciousness of the world. I think here in the States, I hope next Tuesday and next Wednesday, I hope it all levels out, and whoever wins they honestly win. I mean, I'm not going to say, they keep asking either both opponents. They ask them. They said, "Well, what are you going to do if you lose? Are you going to accept loss?" Well, they're going to have to. I think this is way too much and too much stress on everybody. And Andrew, you did you want to make a prediction on who might win or?
Yeah, so I think just like the last time around, and of course I know you said this is entertainment purposes, so this is just once again based on things I've seen, trends I've seen, and tapping into what I think very similar like last time. There'll be something similar where we're looking at the polls, right? Everyone's seeing them now, right? Trump's ahead, or he looks like he should annihilate this or whatever's going on. But I don't think that is what's going to happen. I think it'll be closer and everything has me pulling in the direction of Harris winning. I think because we talked about earlier, they it seems to be overall a lot of powerful people are pushing for her, and there's this great divide. I just realistically coming from a presidential background, meaning I'm related to John Tyler, the 10th president of the United States. That's a fact.
Wow.
That's not hype,
That,
that's a fact.
that's Nick.
And supposedly all presidents are related. I've heard that.
Yeah.
Now, I know though in my family lineage on my mom's side we're related to him. So, am I really related to all these people? I have no idea. However, I know it must not be an easy job to do that stuff, right? To get involved politically, to change your life. I just know this those people have different interests. And I remember the first time Trump ran and he said, lock her up, lock her up. Everyone's talking about locking up Hillary. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, if someone did the wrong thing and they were betraying soldiers and leaving people out to get harmed, I would want them to be held accountable, of course. And then the day Trump got into office, someone asked him, hey, you gonna go after Hillary and lock her up? And he goes, no, no, no. The Clintons are good people.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I just remember, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah.
Wait, wait, wait. I remember watching all these pre-elections, and
Uh,
I would never think he would have said something like that. So, whoa, what changed from when he wanted to get in to when he got in, and now he can't go do those things? And then look at the way they treated him after. So, I know still, right? A lot of people are really after Trump, right, wrong, whatever, but a lot of people want to see him on the stake, man. It just seems
uh,
like that.
they don't want him, even if he wins, they don't want him to take office. So I guess there'd be another impeachment, more than likely. Uh, but
Well, Dave,
Trump,
that's the thing, right? We never, when did we see anything like that of what happened last time? It was so
yeah,
chaotic that I just can't see them. They already said they wouldn't accept the results if he wins, right? So
right. Yeah. Yeah. That's so. What's that tell us people? I mean, we're not the Wizard of Oz's here. But
no.
I think Trump is very. I think he forgives people. He's got people on his staff now that actually stabbed him in the back. I mean, you got Nikki Haley, you got Robert Kennedy, who was opposed to Trump, and they had different ideology, and he's got other people that they said Trump is good about doing that. I mean, he's good about making amends to people and then accept them back into the fold, But let's get that's a scary thought, and people are stressed out about it. I know you probably have clients. You probably have clients that are stressed out about the political situations around the world, don't you, Andrew?
Oh yeah, and being in Australia, we've gone through all sorts of things and everyone loves America here. Everyone always asks me, "What do you think? What's going on?" Everyone always asks me. I go get my hair cut. I'm sitting in the chair. "Hey, what do you think of the election? Have you ever met Trump?" All these questions. And I actually grew up in Floral Park, which is on the border of Nassau County and Queens, where Trump's from Queens. So growing up, everyone knew of him. He was a big real estate guy.
Right.
That's it though. So I know with what he's doing, right? And they want him to go to battle with all these people. You need someone that's a little out there to take these people on. He's perfect for that. I just haven't seen personally in Kamala Harris a track record of hers that would make me feel comfortable that she could go to battle and then do things with people when she's never done it before. So I know Trump, he's got the kahunas to go and do that, but I thought last time people asked me psychically, what did you think of the last election? And I would tell people Trump's going to win. That's what I would think. And then it looked like it, and then all of a sudden, boom. And
Yeah.
this morning when I woke up, someone posted a TikTok video. They supposedly were in Kentucky and they were pressing the screen to
Right.
select Trump,
Yeah.
and it
Saw that.
automatically went to Harris. So I'm
Right.
like, wait, come on. That can't be real, right? No.
Right.
Is
Well,
that really going on?
yeah, we got problems here in Illinois with the voting machines, the tabulation,
Wow.
and they're looking into it right now. And
Whoa.
I guess in Pittsburgh, or I guess maybe one of the bigger towns there, they've had a little bit of voting problems. And in Oregon and Washington State, they've actually had these ballot boxes that you put your ballot box in. It's a metal like a mailbox. They've had them burned. Somebody burned them, and now that's bull. No, the violence, any of that kind of stuff is bull. But even corruption
Whoa.
is bad. I talked to a guy who was a poll supervisor, and he said he caught two people trying to stuff the ballot box
What?
with more than one ballot, and he had to stop them, and he said that's illegal. And
What?
I told him, I said, well, you should have, if you had a cop on the scene, you should have had that dealt with. Nobody should be cheating. And my wife and I, we voted last week, in a what they call early voting, and now we hear, even in Illinois, they're having ballot problems on the machines. So and there's four other states. I can't name them off because I don't want to get into,
Wow.
guessing. But it's, because I'm not an expert, and uh, we're not experts on the balloting. I don't even think the ballot people or the polling people are experts because I don't think they know what's going on sometimes. So I don't know. Andrew, I guess since it's Halloween, I guess you guys are
Yep.
over with Halloween.
Yep.
You said you worked, and I don't think I ever asked you this. You said you worked in a mortuary. Could you
Yep.
tell us any spooky stories that happen dealing with?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So every synchronicity, taking chances in life, right? Trusting the path, all that stuff, that's great. And I have to say, things have happened when I've done that. But you put in hard work, things happen. So I'm sitting in Australia. I want to get a job. I'm like, I want to do something cool, different that I've never done. I'm like, I want to work in a funeral home. That's what I want to do. And I don't know anyone here in the industry, nothing, not a soul. I get a job literally right down the block where I live in a funeral home. It's great. And then I'm like, I want to prepare them. I'd like to prepare the dead, which they call embalming or mortuary work. So I get the chance to work in the mortuary, and the two girls that trained me were psychics. Go figure.
Oh, wow.
That's what are the chances? I'm not in New York. I'm in the other part of the world. And I end up in a mortuary with the girl that trained me was Egyptian. There was a picture of Anubis on the wall, which was in ancient Egyptian
Mhm.
mythology. He
Right.
basically was the embalmer, he took care of the dead, and it was right on the wall. So it was very respectful. It was a great job. And I remember working in there, and one day I'm preparing someone, and all of a sudden the radio turns on. So I got my gloves on. I'm bloody. I got my stuff on, but I'm working on someone. So there's blood, there's human,
Yeah,
fluids and stuff everywhere. I
it's
can't really go over and touch the radio. So I'm like, man, all right. So I go over, take my stuff up, clean up, go over to the radio. I'm looking and I'm like, where's the plug? There's no plug. So I'm like, it must have batteries in it somewhere that I can't see, right? Maybe it's on a timer. This was a radio from like the 1970s.
oh wow.
Okay. There's no batteries in it. Yeah, there's no plug, no batteries, no, little battery, nothing. So I'm looking around it. So I call the girl who runs the mortuary. I said, hey, I said, Janet, where's the plug for this thing? I said, I was working on someone and the radio turned on. I said, did you put a timer on this or something? She goes, no, no, no. That's happened before. I go, how's that possible? It wasn't plugged in. She goes, I don't know. It just turns on once in a while. So the guy that worked in the mortuary before me, I found out. I didn't know this till after. She said, yeah, the guy that worked in there prior to you, he unfortunately he passed. He took his own life.
Oh,
So he was he was a combat vet from what I heard. I never met the guy, but from what I heard, he was a combat vet in Australia somewhere, got a job as a mortician, whatever, and then things happened and he transitioned. And once in a while, weird things would go on in the mortuary. Nothing harmful from him, but the radio would go on once in a while, right? So that was one thing, right? I'm like, all right, whatever. Now, I had seen, psychic things, UFOs over the years. So I was like, that's no big deal. So I'm not scared of that. Another time, I remember going into the refrigerator. We would have like 5 to 6 people at a time in one refrigerator. Then in another facility, we would have up to 40 people in there at one time, deceased.
oh,
So one time I'm in there. This is spooky, right? This person comes in, they're in the mortuary, and I got an overwhelming feeling now. I feel off, I feel sick, I feel antsy, I feel angry. It was a weird feeling. I don't even know who's in there. All that came in was someone's body in a bag. I
Right.
didn't even open it up yet, but I knew from being around the dead long enough, whoa, this person must have suffered some real severe trauma because when I feel like that, and that's rare that I get that feeling, I go, something horrific happened to this person, you know? So I said, let me see if I could tune in, before we open the bag up. Let's
Right.
just see what I'm getting. So I'm like, I'm feeling sick. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling an issue between this person and their parents. And that's the reason for this person's transitioning. So, meaning they took their life or they played a role in their passing because of their dynamic with their parents. That's what I felt. And I also could feel as well, I felt some sort of scarring. It was a weird feeling. I'm like, I'm getting scarring on the right side of this person. I don't know what that means though, but some sort of trauma or scarring on the right side.
Right.
Well, this was an odd thing. When we opened them up, the person had, I don't know how they did this, but they somehow put themselves in or they exposed themselves to some sort of acid, and the acid burnt them up and they passed somehow.
Oh.
So now this is where it gets crazy. So I remember leaving that night and I'm like, I don't feel right. Something's off about this person. And now sometimes people don't rest well. That's what we call it in the mortuary among the psychics. They're not resting yet. So, meaning they passed, their soul was dealing with some things and they're not at rest yet. So, of course, we want to get that person to where they need to go, go to with their family, get buried and go where they need to go because energetically that can affect other people that are around. I felt it. Like I said, I felt sick. So I come in the next morning, the boss comes in and he goes, Andrew, I want to show you something. He pulls his cell phone out. And now the person that with the acid was in that refrigerator overnight still. He goes, yeah, Andrew, at 2 in the morning, I got a call from the security company. And I'm like, he's like, what's going on? They go, there's someone in the mortuary. He goes, well, the alarm didn't go off. Anyone that comes in, there's a keypad you got to punch in to come in. You can't just walk in. So you need to have the keypad code. So he's like, there's no alarm. They're like, no, no, no. The refrigerated door, there's an alarm on it. So he shows me, he goes, Andrew, look at the phone. He shows me right at 2 in the morning. All of a sudden, the refrigerated door is shut all night. The only way it can open is if you hit a push button, right? You hit a push button, then it opens and then it closes. All of a sudden at 2 in the morning, the door opens halfway, stops, then goes and closes, then opens halfway, back and forth, back for a few minutes, and then stops. The repairman came out. There's nothing wrong mechanically with the door. Like we said, we had no one coming in and out of the facility. So what does that mean? That means there's a problem from the inside. Now, that person that was in there, right? A couple hours later, a transport company came and they took that person to their family's house and we never saw them again. And then that never ever happened again to the door. So we believe because of the people ask, can the dead do anything? Can they mess with things? Yeah, that guy that unfortunately had the acid effect and got harmed and crossed, we feel that his soul or his energy was doing something to affect that door. Because that does not make any sense. There was nothing electronically wrong. They came out, they looked at the door. There was nothing electrical wrong. There was nothing else going on except that person was not at rest in that room and that weird thing happened with the door. I'm telling you, man, watching that video, you would have got your hair would have stood up on you. You would have been like, "Oh
Yeah.
my God." Because that in 4 years, that never I never saw that. And the guy working, my boss, he goes, Andrew, in 20 years working in the business, that's never happened.
That's spooky. Uh, Andrew, I know that they say that the soul sticks around for about 3, 4 days. I think it's just that what they're doing is watching how people respond to their death and watching what kind of mistakes they made in their life and also observing, I guess, people for 3 or 4 days before they go to the light. That's what a lot of people call it. They go to the light. And but I believe that because it's even mentioned in the Bible that sometimes the spirit will hang around 3 days to make sure the body is dead. I don't know how that is, but I wrote that
Yeah.
angels and supernatural entities, and I have that biblical paragraph in there, talking about what Jesus said about the soul sticking around for several days, and there's no ghost, in which he says no ghost, but there's spirits that stick around, and they just want to make sure that they're. Some people don't think they're dead. I guess if they die all of a sudden, that's could be what that one that you had, Andrew. That
Yeah, and also, when somebody comes in, right, and not where I worked, I want to be clear, this is not in my funeral home, but one that was not far away, right? So someone came in and they were, usually after you pass, you're warm and then you get less warm, and you get cold. But that takes time. So if you've been in your home in the middle of summer, the environment's really warm. So you might be warm when you still come in. Now, sometimes people right away, they get real stiff and they get cold. Others, it just depends. I've seen all sorts of weird things. So, like I said, I didn't see this, but a guy passed away at home. They brought him in, they put him in the fridge. And I know back in the day, they used to keep people for a couple days till they prepared them because once in a while, people would wake up. People would wake up a few hours later, and the doctor would come right after they died, declare them dead, put on the death certificate, dead. And there was stories I heard of people waking up hours later. Now, I've had people die. As soon as a doctor signs off, that could be right as they die. An hour later, they could bring them right in. The family could go, I want you to cut them open, prepare them, and that's it. So I've never had someone wake up on me, but I could only imagine seeing someone sit up on the table. Oh my God, that's like the movies, but oh my God, could you imagine that someone sitting up and oh, so I've heard that, but whoa, that's got to be crazy.
Yeah. How about somebody moving like a muscle twitch or a nerve, like their hand
Yeah.
or
So
I heard about them setting up, on the mortation
yeah,
table.
yeah. So sometimes the arm, right? Even the arm will fall, or the eyes will just suddenly open.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're working on somebody and the eyes open. Like, whoa! Same thing. That's a reaction of, oh my God. So yeah, once you cut them open and put that in, you got to drain all the fluid out and then fill them up with embalming fluid, basically, right? But once you do that, that's it. And once the fluids are out, it's gone. What's crazy during COVID, right? People would get COVID. We would prepare them, drain them, fill them back up with embalming fluid. There was testing done on people that died, and then 3 weeks later, 3 months later, a year later, we didn't know anything about COVID. So we would test them couple weeks, couple months, year later, what even longer. Even if the someone was dead for months or a year later, we would test them for COVID after, they was still positive, dead.
Oh, that it's
So
yeah.
the only other thing that I've ever heard of, and I asked every embalmer I ever met, some with 50 years experience, I said, is that possible with any disease? Because we drain them. Doesn't everything go? The only disease that does not die in your body, even after you're dead, is HIV and COVID.
Oh, that's good to know. This is for entertainment purposes because
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah, of course, of
mentioned
course.
we mentioned the one word there. But no, but you're talking from a professional point of view.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, this is not third party tested. There's no white paper on this. This is just something I experienced, I
Mhm.
saw. And at the time we did this, that we just saw, whoa, this is how powerful this was. So this is how serious this is, and you got to take the right precautions.
Right. And you've done so much in your life. Let's go. You have a new three-part documentary series. It's going to happen with Amazon Prime about UFO contact. Could you tell us a
Yep.
little bit about that? Has
Yeah,
it always
sure.
been, or what, Andrew?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of UFO contact. I've also had a lot of contact with the afterlife, like we just spoke about.
Mhm.
People that are listening, you can listen to the first episode of me and Dave that gets into all the stuff back in the day. This is more current stuff, but basically, I've had contact with angelic type beings, people in the afterlife, people's loved ones, and then extraterrestrials. So in this three-part series, they're gonna go with contactees that have had all sorts of contacts, whether it's extraterrestrial, angelic. I've had basically all the above. So the three-part series, I'm in all three parts. And they're going to actually show some readings that I've done, actual readings that I've done on people, because I will read people that are listening out there. If you've lost a loved one, if you've had UFO contact, if you've had a weird experience you can't make sense of, people will come to me. And as a medium, I'm able to connect people with their departed loved ones and their ancestral lineage, whether they've had contact with, an extraterrestrial race or they just want to communicate with loved ones. I can do all the above and in between. That's just what I've experienced. To me, it's all connected. I think after we die, we go to a space in between where there's angels, extraterrestrials, all sorts of beings. It's limitless. If you look in religious texts, they talk about all this stuff. And even at the Pentagon, they had people there's one person on the UAP task force that has come forward recently, a lovely girl that I know named Sarah. Sarah Gam was Gamm. Gam, you can look her up. She was on the UAP task force. She's also a psychic medium. She's had contact with extraterrestrials, the angelic race. She knows all about this stuff. So even on the government side,
Yeah.
they're well aware of this now. This is nothing new that I've been talking about, but it's refreshing when it comes on the governmental side when they're studying this to know, whoa, there's a contactee on the UAP task force. Okay, straight up, just like what I'm talking about, same thing, but a female, same thing. So this is that real, and this is getting scientific evaluation, and then now major networks and companies out there, everyone wants to talk about this, Dave. I'm doing readings. I've been doing readings for 15 years. I do readings on everyone from my next door neighbor to A-list actors now, and some of them finally have come forward. And if you're listening, anyone that I've read, I encourage people to come forward because people that are credible, people that have been in movies, people that have been in the spotlight, people listen to them. So when people watch TV, they see, movies, they see A-list actors. Some of them I have read, you know who you are if you're listening to this, okay? Come forward because it lends credibility to this to go, whoa, someone's in Hollywood and if they've gotten readings, they've seen things, they've interacted with this stuff. People want to hear stories from contactees. Taylor Swift, okay, whether you like her or not, on her a new song she has is all about being abducted and contact. She's my kids and my wife, they bought me a UFO shirt, her Taylor Swift UFO shirt with the UFO on it. But that's great. That's a great way that we could have this conversation. It's a great starting point.
Yeah. So you're a Swiftie.
My wife and kids went to the show, and I'm like, well, if she's listening, she's all about UFOs. Hey, man, that's great. I'm on board, right? That's great.
Yeah.
Yes, whatever you want to call it.
I like a lot of her songs, and I think she does a great job on stage. I don't know if I like a lot of her ideology or whatever how she thinks, but not all of her Swiftie people followers follow her thoughts either. But I think I have this tendency of wanting to get new people on my program to talk about their experiences. Because just like you said, Andrew, it lends to the disclosure process to get more and more people out there. And especially you're talking about A-listers, that they can spread the word out further than just a newbie contactee that's off the street. But I'd like to give them all a chance. But sometimes they chicken out at the last because they get pressure from their family or their friends and they say, oh, you don't want to do that, you don't want to expose yourself, because it's crazy. But I think that's starting to trend downward now, because of the disclosure that the government's already put out there with UFOs and the military being involved. What I want to ask you, since you know a little bit about this gal, Andrew, is disclosure, is it right around the corner, or who's putting this off and who's stalling?
Yeah, so there seems to be, even at those levels, right? There seems to be, right? People want the truth, they want to reveal, and there seems to be some sort of resistance, right? Sean Kirkpatrick, right? Once again, people can Google this. Is nothing that Andrew's saying. This is what he said. Oh, there's no evidence. There's nothing. You have a member of the UAP task force, Sarah. You can look her up. Has done interviews on Ross Coulthard, who I know him too. He's a great guy. She's on all the big podcasts now, all the shows. She's saying, I interact with the phenomena. Go on my Facebook. You can see videos, pictures, blah, blah. Go on my Instagram. You'll see I just shared her talking about it. It's 1,000% real. So this is what I've always said because Greer told me this in 2011. People love him, people hate him, but I do believe in this. When the people lead, the leaders would be forced to follow. 10, 20 years ago, even if there was a contactee on a UFO board, you'd never know. Now there's one coming forward saying, yeah, I was on the board. I'm a scientist. I'm credible. I still work at the Pentagon. Like, what? So we need to listen because why? they're talking to regular people like me. I'm just a regular dude. I'm not one of the Pentagon people. I'm just a regular dude with a story that just always shared and always stuck to what I've known. However, those people now are going, "Hey, I'm hearing what you're experiencing. We need to come together and share this message." They're not negating what I'm saying. They're not saying I'm nuts. What they're saying is that resistance internally, yes, there is a resistance, but the light workers or the people, the contactees, the ones that are listening right now, you know who you are. We need to keep sharing what we're experiencing because enough of us are finally doing it where that tide is turning. And I know that because some of the A-listers, some of those actors, some of those people that I've met, guys I know, literally, I was on a C5 trip with the A-list actor 15 years ago. Okay. He's come forward and sharing about some contact experiences. Now, I'll let him tell his story. However, he's doing a movie now with a friend of mine, a good friend who I read. Okay, I did a psychic reading on this guy. The guy was blown away. They're working on a movie together now. So I'm working right now about going on a podcast of theirs, an A-listers podcast, to share my story, how I met him, and then this other big, huge Hollywood actor. I said, "Hey man, you got to talk to him and tell him you know me because it's time. Like it's time, bro. Speak up because I could drop your name right this second. I don't like doing that. I want you to tell your story." But it's true that I was with you in 2011 and we had a CE5 experience together for a few days. And you have a platform to millions of people. Okay. And only sharing a little bit of it, like, oh, I know it's real. No, how about you met a group of people, you had a beautiful experience with, like-minded people from all over the world. Yes, because you're validating what I've been saying from day one, and you have the platform to millions of people. I don't. I
Yeah.
want that because I want to reach everyone. And that way, because I know, Dave, I know that there are millions of us out there, but we, regular dudes, we just don't have the reach to get to them. But when I reach people on that other side that have millions of followers, they're like, "Oh my God, yeah, man, I've had experiences." I'm like, "Dude, share that. Don't keep that to yourself."
Yeah. I had Rich Hoffman on my show about 2 weeks ago, and he's in an organization that's actually supporting this disclosure thing. They're collecting data and everything. And he's talking about Louis Alessandro's new book out. And he's got a new book out that I just released a couple of weeks ago. And that'd be interesting to read. But I don't know if Louis Alessandro are the original cast of characters, the Blink what 32 or 22 guitar player. I don't know if
Yep.
they're all together. They might have split out, and there's the other organizations kind of taking up picking up the work that they left behind, and they're doing this disclosure thing. And maybe because of the Pentagon and the military or the people in higher up positions, probably above them, are telling them, no, we're not ready to disclose. And one of the thoughts that I had, Andrew, I think I mentioned it before. I don't know if it gets me in trouble or not, but my thought, this is my opinion, is that there's a structure of hierarchy that pulls the puppet strings on the military and the Pentagon and also the politicians. They don't have the final say. There's somebody way up in the hierarchy that's around the world, and I want to get involved in those groups. But we know the rich people, the powerful people that may not want disclosure right now because they're utilizing some of that technology and they don't want us to know about it. What do you think
That's
about
and
that, Drew?
you're spot on. So I know for sure several, not just a few, most of probably. I can't say all of them because I haven't communicated with all of them, but I personally know members of Congress that are contactees. And that is why right now they're pushing for this. But as they go higher up, you have the people at the top that if it comes out that it's the phenomenon is peaceful, right? There's no harm, then they can't feed the military industrial complex and the fear component. They want people talking about it. Good, bad, they don't care what you're saying. Just talk about whatever. They once again, there's a war on for your emotions, for your focus. So they want you focusing. But for the bottom line of like, well, what's it all about then? Like, oh no, it's not negative, it's positive. Oh, the negative component is actually humans that were in black projects abducting people that are 100% human. They
Yeah,
don't want that out. That's why they'll never release the truth because no president wants it on the watch because someone's going to go, okay, what about these military guys who are credible that have been taken literally and have health problems now? Kit Green and Gary Nolan did a study about military guys that had contact that have health problems. Dr. Kit Green's analysis at the end was that the phenomena, the UFOs that they interacted with,
Right.
were human made.
Yeah. And this is
That's
fact.
crazy.
Yeah. This is
So that
fact.
what
Yeah.
people listening, just people listening, what that means is our own service members are going out there thinking that they're interacting with some sort of foreign UFO tech from another universe, and they're touching it, getting harmful health effects, coming back, going, getting studied by our own people, CIA, whatever, and they're figuring out, wait, those aren't real UFOs. Those are the ones that we made.
Yeah.
That's sick.
And they also are talking about the UFOs. There's some of these UFOs that are ours, and we don't know that they have them yet. Some advanced aircraft that we don't know anything about. We're about 20 years or 30 years behind the military industrial complex. And I wanted to ask you this too, Andrew. Why are we having so much activity with UFOs? I know it's because of cameras. Everybody's got a cell phone camera and they film and they take pictures of all these UFOs now. That's part of it, but I think there's more to it. They're showing up more often all around the world, and it may be because the world is kind of like in a chaotic situation, and maybe that's why, Andrew.
I've heard, September, I don't know what date, September 20 something in 2026. And then I've heard 2027, there's going to be some sort of event. I just heard the other day someone said, oh, Cliff High said that 39 days after Trump speaks, there's going to be a UFO landing. I personally, I've never had anything like that come to me from ETs. They've never said, we're coming on this date. Not at all.
Yeah,
They've just basically been like, if they communicate or they speak, it's not like a novel. They don't know. It's very little that's spoken, very little, mostly observation. They're just like looking like you guys have a lot of growing to do. You got to figure this thing out. But they're getting more concerned because we're playing with fire, meaning we're touching weapons of mass destruction, things that are harmful. Sarah Gam also, she works at the Pentagon, and her background, you can look this up. Once again, there's no secret. Her background is WMD, weapons of mass destruction. That's her background, and she was on the UAP task force. Why do you think that is? Once
yeah,
again, this is all connected, right? So I'm not speaking for her. She speaks about this, but there is some sort of concern with someone on the UAP task force that's communicating with extraterrestrials. She has a background in WMD. I don't have any of those backgrounds in WMD, although in the fire department we did WMD training.
yes,
And one of the basic things that ETs have communicated with me was we are extremely concerned with how you're treating each other and the cosmos, meaning if you light off a nuke or something, really strong, you'll affect all of us. And that's why they came after the first A bomb. So they're very concerned. So they're showing up in troves. However, they've also been shot down. They've had terrible things done to them. So they're very cautious where they physically manifest. A lot of what people see are projections. So they'll see what they think are craft, but the craft is somewhere else. Okay, they're just showing a quick projection of themselves. They have the technology to do that. To physically manifest, take form, and come out like in 3D would be extremely dangerous to do. Why? Because we have sensors. You can look this up. We have detectors and sensors here in our own government to detect the presence of the phenomena. So if they actually did that, they have teams that will come out and intervene and take them. So it is extremely dangerous to physically manifest. Mostly they're from a distant place. When we psychically connect or meditating, boom, they'll show something just to acknowledge. But to physically appear, that's extremely dangerous for them and us.
that's a new take on that. That's I never thought of that. That they are showing a holographic, or we call it
Yes.
Project Bluebeam. You've heard of that, and
Yes.
yes, and I have talked to a scientist a little bit about that, and but they project holographic things in the sky. We can actually do that, and when you say the UFOs are doing that to try to throw us off, and actually the real UFO is probably over here, but they got one over here to take them. Okay, I that's a good concept. That really does ring true. Andrew, now getting into ETs, moving along here, have you had any scary or really phenomenal moments as an experiencer with ETs? Or have you interviewed people or had clients that had really juicy stories about ETs and UFOs, Andrew?
Yeah, so anyone that's had a terrible experience, an abduction phenomena or whatever, something crazy, and I've had hundreds of people over the years now. I mean, oh my God, like, yeah, it's everywhere. So people that are having that, people will have that and then get a regression or come to me for a session. And Mary Rodwell's a great regressionist. That's who regressed me. And Mary will always say people that have had bad experiences, and I've experienced this too, after they get regressed, after they process the situation, a lot of people after will realize what they thought was a negative experience was either something human or was not negative. The ETs are trying to help them or repair them, like Travis Walton. If you watch Fire in the Sky,
Yeah.
it's a doomsday scenario. Travis will say, though, no, I got too close to the craft. I got harmed. They brought me on board and they saved my life. But the movie is Hollywood. So I'm very skeptical on that stuff. And once again, if I don't ever negate someone having that happen. However, I've had people who have had weird experiences or bad ones. People have sat with me physically or even through Zoom. I've had contact with people through Zoom, done a CE5 through Zoom. And then after people were like, wow, that's not what happened last time. That's not the experience I had. I'm not afraid anymore. That's not what I thought. So you have to see also when people are going through traumatic experiences, people have bad dreams. They'll see demonic entities, right? Everything in life is horrible. I've gone through this personally, after 9/11, you have bad dreams, you're seeing demons, or we don't know what's going on. But then you do work on yourself, you release that trauma, and then those demons will turn to angels. If you watch the movie Jacob's Ladder, it said if you don't learn to let go, okay, in life, then after you die, the angels that are pulling you to heaven will be demons if you don't let go. But if you let go, those demons will now be angels releasing you to heaven. So it's once again, it's all about, I really do believe here on earth, releasing all that trauma and madness, ET, demon, whatever you want to call them, thought forms, but you got to work with somebody, whether it's a psychic or a trained professional, a psychologist, whatever, release that trauma, and then you'll start to attract something different.
Andrew, since you have these clients and you've had some experience with them, how does one release that trauma? Are there certain ways that you recommend, Andrew?
Yeah, so of course, there's several different ways. I always say to people, one shot with anything. No, if you go to a regressionist, you go see a therapist, shouldn't be going once. That's a process. Once again, if you walked 100 miles into the forest, it's going to take 100 to walk out. So depending on what you've been through, right? eh, There's things you need to deal with a psychologist. You've been through things in childhood, whatever. You go through that stuff. If people are doing all of those things and there's still something missing or they're having these negative interactions, right? I will sit with them and we can write out, right? Write out everything that we've been through. I literally will speak out, right? Things that I've gone through, release that stuff back to I'm just giving you a short way, right? Writing things out, releasing that back, literally speaking that out. When you do a regression or you have a session type thing, you can go into a meditative state or not. Some people don't want to go into a meditative state, but you can go through it's like a visualization type process where you walk through and you go back through the experience of what you went through. And I have seen this enough with people where they will walk through it and then after they feel release because when that trauma or fear comes up, there are methods to literally push that back. And now, like I said, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, but my wife is a certified mental health professional. So I always say to people, make sure you're following up with some sort of mental health professional. Don't just do one shot of anything. I would encourage to, you work with this, you work on this with a therapist, but people will come to me for ET type things because talking to a therapist, they're going to say you're nuts.
Yeah.
So you need to talk with somebody who's got a lot of experience. And usually, when people are having negative type of UFO phenomena and interactions, there's usually some sort of traumatic thing going on in life. It's not just the ETs.
Right.
So when we look at that, it's like a two-prong approach. You got to look at it with a psychologist or a trained therapist, and someone like me can also help with both. But it's not just one or the other. To me, you got to do both.
Right. I have seen a couple. I wrote a book, my first book about 3 years ago, about my experiences. That was kind of like me venting, everything that's happened to me. And there's more that's happened to me since. I keep a ledger. So I write these things down, just like you said. You keep a record of them, you think about them, and you release them. And that's what I've been doing with this, and also doing these podcasts and talking about ETs. I did see a couple of ugly ETs that scared me. I turned around at my by my bedside, and there was this 3.5 foot ugly. He was ugly. I mean, he had wrinkles. I mean, you could put a credit card in his wrinkles, and he had big eyes. You know, he didn't have the lenses, black lenses on, but he's a little gray, is what he was. He looked gray green in the bedroom that was kind of dark a little bit because my ex-wife had to have the windows covered completely, no light at all. So there he was just there, and I saw him, and it scared me, and then I just kind of passed out. And then I seen a reptilian when I woke up about 5 in the morning, go to the bathroom. He was standing near my closet, and he was actually holographic, or he appeared in a holographic form. They say they do
Yep.
sometimes because they know they scare us. And well, he did. He looked like a cobra in the face, and I don't like cobras. I don't like snakes, so I got scared. But that fear went away after that day. After I tried to make sense of things. Being in combat, you have to try to make sense of things and try to vent it out and work it out yourself. And that's what, like you're saying, that people have to work at it. Sometimes they need help working at it. But have you seen an ET up close, Andrew?
Oh, yes. Yes, several. I mean, many different types, and most of them do not look like blonde hair and blue eyes from the Nordics, right?
Yeah.
They're always beautiful. Nah, man, come on. It's anything is possible in the cosmos. And I just think that I've prepared dead people. So like it doesn't really matter. And I tried to revive plenty as a firefighter that OD'd on heroin or whatever. You just help them. It doesn't matter what's going on in their life. So none of that stuff scared me. So I think that that's why I've had the volume of contact with different types of beings. There was a gray once, okay, that I had seen. I had a friend that saw a very similar looking gray. He was able to photograph it and he showed Kit Green, Dr. Kit Green, and Dr. Kit Green said that this being was an ultra terrestrial. And he said that this particular being was over like 10,000 years old.
Wow.
10,000. Now, that's not what I'm saying. That's from him, but he's a very credible person, Kit Green. So this is how far back and how deep this stuff goes. There's anything that's on this. The only problems I've had, Dave, and even they could look as weird as they are or whatever, they don't bother me. The only problems I've had in life were just with humans.
Yeah.
That's it.
I've been electrocuted, and it scared me in a couple of abductions, and I was, completely immobilized. But I was scared for a little while, but afterwards I thought that was exhilarating. That was weird, and it was spiritual. It didn't hurt me. The electrical shocks didn't hurt me. Matter of fact, it might have healed me. I don't know. Sometimes they work in healing people, extraterrestrials. I talked to a guest here a while back about that, where extraterrestrials will stop and do a bedside, inspection of you and whatever, and heal you and do things. And I think I've been healed a few times by these extraterrestrials because I keep on going. I hope I keep going on longer. But if they're helping me, I hope they keep coming back. So I'm always curious. I'm not left with any bad feelings about ETs. I'm curious about what the heck were they doing with me and why, and then come back and talk to me and tell me what's going on. I don't think I'll ever get that, Andrew. Has anybody ever gotten that? A full explanation from?
Well, I think that, if we had all the answers to everything in life, it would be no good. And people say, are they going to just land here on the White House lawn? I said, if they landed right now, most people would go outside, look, and go, okay, cool, but I got to go back to work. My boss is going to yell at me.
Yeah.
I think people are so desensitized and they've done this on purpose and they've muddied this so much with the disclosures coming and it's not coming and not coming that they know that they're here, they're amongst us already. Robert Bigelow said that, and then Robert Bigelow magically lost all of his contracts with his space stuff. Look this up. After he went on 60 Minutes and said they walk among us, basically, they're
Right.
right under our noses.
Yes, they are.
He lost all his contracts. Now he came out and said, "Oh, that's not what I meant." Yeah, yeah, okay. Well, anyway, okay, whatever. I don't have any of that stuff to lose. I don't care. I have nothing to gain or lose from that. So I only know my experience. Okay. So I really think that, like you said, if we, knew everything for not, I'm saying everybody, but a lot of people would go, "Oh, great. Now I don't have to look into this anymore. Now I can go back to being distracted." So I don't want, and same thing. I don't want to know all the answers. I want to go on this treasure hunt. It's so cool. I've
Mm.
met the coolest people. If it ended today and they go, okay, we've been here forever. Here's the Akashic record. Everything's known now, and we live in universal peace. And
Yeah,
I love. I was a New York City firefighter. I was happy. I was living on the beach in Coney Island. It was amazing. But I am so happy where I am now and the people I've met along my journey. Oh my God, I wouldn't change a thing. So I don't want it to end either because what's next?
yeah,
Who knows?
yeah. Well, you're in an exciting, you know, way of being doing things, your work and everything that you've done in the past. It's you got quite a history, and you're not that old. You're not as old as me, that's for sure. You could be my son, and I'd be proud of you. I'd be proud of having a son like you, sure. But but now we talk about witnesses in this in all this disclosure thing, Andrew.
Yeah.
Uh, I see like George Knapp once said here about a few months ago. I didn't like what he said. He said, "Well, we have airline pilots, professionals, and we have military pilots, professionals, and we have other people that are professional in aviation and science, and we can believe them. But they said the people on the street that have these stories, he said they're not as credible. So, and I felt that's bad. That's not good. How do you think? What do you think about that remark, Andrew?
Well, you could look this up yesterday. There was this big thing going on with Lou Elizondo in a photo of the chandelier.
Mhm.
So, did you hear about this?
I haven't heard about it. No, but
Okay.
about
Lou Elizondo had a private event in Philadelphia where he was showing real photos. These are fake, these are real, you know what I mean? He came out and said, we took this one at, the embassy. This is the real deal. This is the mothership. Someone, John Greenwald from the Black Vault, I guess, looked it up, and it was the picture of a chandelier inside someone's home. It
oh,
wasn't a mothership. And Lou Elizondo even said after someone at the Pentagon gave that to me. So that should be vetted, right? Like, and I would think that's a pretty big deal to show at a private event. So I hear what George Knapp's saying, but you also have the cream of the crop people, right? The best of the best former people who are sharing photos that I don't care if they came out after and said it's not real. You just told a bunch of people it was real, and who knows who they told. So no one's perfect. That's what I'm saying. No one's perfect. People make mistakes. I'm not taking a dig at anyone growing up and when I first started taking photos, oh my God, I probably misidentified craft, but I did the best I could. Okay. And I never wanted to take any photos because I knew when I was near something, I could feel the presence of the beings and there was no agenda. And I've noticed with the regular street people that I've met, right? There's no agenda. I don't care. We don't say, oh, that's classified. I can't talk about that. And what freedom that we have because those other people, you hear they get close, and then, oh, I can't go testify. None of those good people to go testify. Why? Because they're going to go testify. They're going to ask them about classified projects, and they're going to go, that's classified. That's classified. So the things that we want to hear, they can't talk about that. They'll go behind the scenes and talk in a classified setting. So still, it's like a tease, like a carrot being dangled. And that's why with me, I'm just a regular dude, man. Like when people say, "What's your name as a medium?" I said, "Well, I started doing readings as a firefighter. They call me the psychic firefighter. I don't want to be known as the Hollywood medium or the insider medium because I don't want to be classified. I'm not about that crap, man. I just know I'm a regular dude. I've seen a lot of wild things, and I like just being around regular people that have seen things. And then those other people, they'll follow along eventually because that'll get old. People will go, "Oh, I don't want to hear that, man. I'm getting confused and getting a headache." Where you could just talk to someone like me or you, and we'll just say what we know. There's
yeah,
no agenda.
yeah. I think there's also what you're saying on the inside. There could be some disinformation. Somebody's trying to sabotage the system,
And
and
it's that's sick. Yeah,
I
that's sick.
they're trying to hold the disclosure back by letting us know that some of this stuff's fake, and then we're not going to believe any disclosure projects that's coming out. And so that's scary. That's the first time I've heard that about a fake picture. I'm glad you told me about that Louis Elizondo picture. Uh, the I guess communicating with the dead in a post, you know, virus world. Uh, how's that going? You mentioned that is something you get
Yeah.
in,
So psychic readings, I was working in a funeral home during COVID
right,
as my full-time job and very busy, obviously, with COVID. It was crazy. Oh my God. Just, oh my God, the stuff we did right everywhere. It was just nuts, especially people coming in that had COVID and the measures you had to take to protect yourself. Well, then I started doing more readings, and then it got so crazy with readings. I was like, I need to go into that full time. Once again, I felt the internal calling. It's time to go all in with this. And COVID, okay, has done something to people kind of like 9/11. After 9/11, it was at a different level with death, grieving, grief, because we thought after 9/11, we were going to have a lot of survivors. We thought people were going to be in the buildings that came out injured. There
right,
were no injuries. Everyone was gone. They were incinerated. COVID, you had people, yes, people died, but then you also have people that have had complications now, that have health effects that are still around lingering. The COVID effects we haven't even seen yet. Like that's not even done with. That's going to take years. You know what I mean? And now you have new viruses, a new strain, way worse than anything we could have imagined. So I'm having people come to me that on top of losing someone from COVID, now they've also lost their job. You know what I mean? Because, oh, their business shut down. So I have seen more grief, more trauma than ever before. And I went through 9/11 as a kid. My dad was a fireman. He was at ground zero when the towers fell as a firefighter. And I know what that was like. Going through it now as a medium, this is a whole new world. It's a whole different level. So just remember this: there's a new wave of people out there that have literally worked, and I'm not judging anyone, I'm just saying people have worked in retail or people have gone to college or done whatever, and they've lost all of that because things shut down. And now some of these same people have gone online and become psychic mediums out of nowhere. Okay, out of literally no experience, out of nowhere, and they're doing tarot readings or whatever. So if you're listening to this, you've lost somebody you love, and you're thinking about getting a reading, whether it's from me, the guy I train with, Robert Hansen, John Edward, whoever, just whoever you're looking into, make sure they have a background. They've been doing this a long time because there's a lot of pop-up psychics that are not, and they're going to take your money and they're going to say, who do you want to talk to? And you're going to say, my mom. And you don't know, you're grieving. And they're going to go, oh, your mom? Okay, that's $50. Number one, a psychic shouldn't say, who do you want to talk to? They're going to sit with you and just say, who's ever around I could communicate with.
right.
This isn't a collect phone call. If a psychic can talk to anyone you want, give me their number. I want to meet them because that's impossible. Okay. However, if you go on TikTok, they're doing it. I've seen it. So just be careful because it wasn't like this back in the day when I got involved. Mediumship is not the way it is now, and you get a bad rap from people like that. So be very vigilant with who's around if you're grieving.
Right. I have a guy that he's a friend of mine, and he writes ghost books and he does a lot of investigations in ghosts. And he said they have these jumpers, like these souls will jump into your soul. Now, as a reader, as a psychic, do you ever, and you're empathic, there's no doubt that you have your empathic skills there. Now, do you find that sometimes that energy or that spirit gets inside you and troubles you for a while, Andrew?
So yeah, I mean, I will sense things, I will feel things. I'm good at separating. I won't say something goes in me. It's more of just like you eat a plate of food that's not good, then you're like, man, I feel sick.
Yeah.
So I get the after effect. I don't get the, oh my God, it's inside of me. It's more of, well, I'm getting hot. I get real sweaty, right? When I read a lot. Or I'll get different effects. I'll get tingly sensations at different parts of my body, which can relate to how the person crossed. So I'll be like, wow, my hand's getting tingly. Did this person have a broken hand or trauma in that area? And they're like, oh my God, yeah, he had a cast on his arm when he died. So that's how I identify and feel those things. So yeah, you got to be careful with that. A lot of people will say, do you do any protection or any spells? This is what I will say. Um, no, you don't have to. I just every day I have a routine. So I wake up early, I eat right, I exercise. That's it. I don't do any crazy 5-hour meditations. You could do that if you want. It's not going to hurt anything, but I meditate every day, but not for hours. You don't have to go berserk like that. But if you want to, nothing wrong with it. Hey, You'd rather go meditating for 5 hours than go get drunk for 5 hours, right? Nothing wrong with that. So it's what you want. You do what you feel is appropriate, and usually looking after yourself. I don't drink. I don't take any drugs. So I would just say if you're getting involved with this, I wouldn't recommend doing any of that because then the signal might get affected. And if you do that, you are opening up the door for something to come in because your inhibitions are down. Now any attachments or whatever or any negative energies, oh, you notice people that are alcoholics or addicts usually have a lot more mental health things
Right.
because when your inhibitions are down, now you're opening up the door for all this trauma and fear to come in, and it's tough to get out of that.
And also terrible on the body. I know I've had my 3 drinks this month. I used to drink more, but as a musician, for 42 years,
Sure.
I didn't do drugs, but I did drink. And but I'd sweat it out halfway through the gig. 4 hours of playing rock music will wear you out. So I didn't drink that much. Actually, I burned it out, but I don't drink because I think it does weaken the soul and it brings you down. It gives you a little depression. The hangover is terrible as you get older. So I don't do that. But I know that I'm a kind of an empath. And I think this ET thing with my abductions and my relationships with a lot of these ET experiences, I find myself as an empath. I kind of suck in a lot of the pain and agony that other people are suffering. I think about my mom. I think about my brother who's got, these diseases, and I kind of absorb that. And I think it gets on your nerves, and you have to kind of think about how do I, can I do something about it? No, not really. That's in the hands of the doctors. So how do people just like me? I'm not a practicing empath, but I am a person. I personally am. I can feel other people's pain, and I associate myself with what's going on in their lives. But this is like I had a friend die here a couple of months ago, and I really he went through a lot of misery, and I thought to myself that makes me feel bad. How does
Sure.
one how does one get rid of the normal empathic pain that you might absorb, Andrew?
Yeah, the best way for me is physical exertion. So, and at any age. So, I've worked with people of all ages, and I've worked with people that were in wheelchairs, whatever. So, qigong is the best practice because you could be lying supine, you could be lying on your back in bed or whatever, and just move your mind, then your hands a little bit. Sitting in a chair, just do little leg lifts. Something that physical exertion is the best. Number one, you could do push-ups, just do a couple push-ups. You push that physical pain out. That's the best thing. And then people will go to see someone, a healer, and they'll go, "Oh, your throat chakra's blocked," or "All right, yeah, you need to talk." Just
Yeah,
like anything, you need to talk. If you don't talk, that's the first point. If you're not speaking that out, that will drop down. And you want to say it affects your chakras, but it's just basic common sense. If you don't speak it out, that that feeling is going to drop down. It's going to go in your chest. You're going to feel tingly. It's going to go down your stomach. You're going to get ulcers. It's going to go throughout your body. So you got to call, for me, I got to find someone, and I got to find somebody that's been through what I've been through or going through it that I know, hey, they're going through it too. Not somebody that, they can't get there, they fail, they fail, they fail. That person needs to find the person that's made it. So, hey, who's a mentor or somebody that's doing what I'm doing to go, hey, oh my God, I went through this. Oh my God, I went through this. And then that way, I really feel that from camaraderie, right? We heal each other. If we were meant to go through life alone, to work one on one forever alone, believe me, you'd be alone somewhere with no one around on an island and figuring it out. And maybe that's the next life. But right now, we're in this together because that's the reality. So everything affects each other. But if you take care of what's in your immediate household, right? Your family, the people you love, couple friends. I don't have many friends. I just have a couple, but we really understand each other very well. Okay. And we don't talk about this stuff. It's not like that. We just talk about real things or whatever, but we've been through everything together. And I know I can count on them. They don't have to be psychics. It's not that. But I have about, one or two medium type friends that, oh my God, they've been to hell and back with me. And we know what's up. This is just part of the gig. You got to figure it out. So it's hard to go through this or to do this with a partner that doesn't understand Oh, but family that talk down to you. And I know a lot of people try to get into this line of work and their partner or their family go, you're crazy, you're not going to make it, blah, blah, blah. And most people walk away from their gifts or their abilities. I know because I end up meeting them, they come back to me. And you need that positive reinforcement. And it starts literally just with the talking. And if the person you're talking to is not uplifting you and raising your vibration, I'm not saying what to do, but for me personally, I would need to change and find someone else to lift me up because if they don't, they're either pushing you down or lifting you up,
Yeah.
and I can't afford to get pushed down.
Yeah, you can't have people dragging you down from the back. I know myself when I know I got a couple of brothers who they're old bachelors, and I call them every once in a while because it's not good for people. You mentioned it, you kind of alluded to it. It's not good to be alone. It's they say the people that live alone their expectancy is shorter actually, and that's
Yep.
sad. I never did want to do that, but it's sometimes it's easier to live alone. Some people can do it, and some people can't, and it affects their health. Let's get into this. I think I'm pushing you on time. We never did talk about how long you wanted to go.
Oh yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, we could do another one, another question, whatever. That's fine.
Oh,
Wrap up.
okay. All right. I wanted to get into your book, Angels in the
Sure.
House. So let's talk about that and what's going on with that, Andrew.
So I started writing a book. And people listening out there that thinking about writing, maybe writing. When I read someone, if it comes up to write, I always encourage it because that could be a building block. I kept getting a message, a download to write. And I'm like, I don't write. Like, this is why I'm not gonna write out my life. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do it. I kept feeling it, kept seeing it to write it. So I wrote out 10,000 words. And then the next week I was speaking with someone at the New York Times just happened to be, and they were lovely, and they introduced me to somebody who was a book agent, a literary agent. And the guy's like, "Oh, have you ever written anything?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I actually just wrote 10,000 words out the other day." Kind of channeled him. I just couldn't stop. I just went nuts. It was great. And he's like, "Oh, let me take a look." And they're like, "Oh, wow, would you want to do a book?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great." Bang. So you never know. Now it started out as that. I've delayed it just because I've had a bunch of other projects happen. And I'm doing this book, and there's probably going to be another one right after it. The starting one is just with the firehouse. I had a lot of angelic type interactions. Just a quick one I'll share with you guys here. We would do 911 calls when I was a firefighter. So people would call 911 for drug overdoses or people that were dead or looked like they were dying or whatever. There was a couple times, but this one in particular, there was a girl overdosed on heroin, literally the needle sticking out of her arm.
Hmm.
Go in the room. It was, yeah, scary. We're reviving her. We're working on it, working and working. The family's there upset, screaming, get her, get her, get her. Oh my God, can you save her? Can you save her? That's a tremendous amount of pressure
Yeah.
for anybody, someone screaming at you, and it's not your fault, like they just, oh my God, they're terrified. And we're working on it out of the corners of my eyes. And so these two purple, what I consider angelic type beings, literally right there and ascend down. They were right there with us the whole time. As we were working on this girl, they're getting lower and lower and lower. And the girl came back. She revived and she lived. And this had happened on a few encounters, and I'm like, I don't know what they are. I couldn't tell anyone at work. I mean, come on. They'd be like, you're right, bro. That's crazy. But I'm telling you, I had seen this on several occasions. A couple fires, bunch of 911 calls over the years. Some like purple felt angelic, it felt positive, but some sort of energy was in the room. Yes, I do feel it's because I'm intuitive, I'm in tune. Maybe another guy wouldn't see anything because he's not meditating every day. I'm meditating every day, doing C5, doing, reading. So yeah, when you do that and you expand and you open up, you can let in positive. So these positive type of energy would come in and assist in healings. So I decided it was time to write a book about it.
Right. I'll tell you what, Andrew, I've been retired over 10 years. I just started my first book 3 years ago. Now I just completed book number 4. I predict,
Wow.
I'm not a real psychic, but I have a feeling. I was like, I predict you're going to be writing a lot of books. Okay, I really do. You've got a life experience that you can go on and do this. And you're right. The person sitting next to you may not be able to visualize or may not have that third eye or that intuitive fashion about them to experience somebody else being in the room with them. and a lot of people, they ignore it. I mean, they're just, their consciousness isn't that high. I would imagine you probably work with buddies that you had these experiences with, and they, like you said, this one didn't know it, didn't even realize it. And
Yeah.
that's part of the whole thing. uh let's let's talk about what you're going to be doing. And you got some, you're on TV a lot. I noticed that you were on Ancient Aliens, I believe, here a while back. And you've been on other shows, History Channel, that type of thing.
Yep. So coming up this year, I have the Amazon Prime project coming out around March. That'll be shown at all the big film festivals. That's going to be a pretty big deal. The Contact one. I'll have, as soon as I have any release dates or a trailer, I'll be sharing it. But that's an amazing team. The lady working on that, she did a film prior to that that won 6 awards on her first film. I'll be sharing all that info when I can, but she's amazing, and that's going to be a great thing. And then I'm doing a couple of the projects with a few other networks in the States. So I'll be back in America to be filming some CE5 stuff, some UFO contact. That's what I want to do. I want to just go around doing psychic readings, making UFO contact, helping out abductees, contactees, whatever you want to call us, regular works of people, actors and actresses. I don't care, whatever your background is, man. If you know you've been through something, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear people, real people share real stories and see how we get this through this stuff. It's from coming together as one. And that's what it's all about. And I share everything. So anything I'm going through, you go on my socials. I don't like I'm not hiding anything. I just whatever I'm going through, you look every day I'm posting UFO videos. Dave, the other night I sat outside. Literally, I was only outside for a half hour. I'm not kidding, in a half hour, I must have seen at least 30 craft.
Wow.
30 and the same spot, one after another, with these weird plasma light things ripping through. And I'm lucky I had the good camera for that for most of it. So I'm getting good footage and sending it all out. I've had all my footage analyzed. This is all real stuff. You can go, people listening, go on my social media. I share everything. But these are the real deal, man. These are the orbs, the craft.
See, your consciousness so high is that you're a UFO magnet, is what happens. A lot of people
Yes.
are like that. They can bring them in at will. And I wish I could. I haven't exacted that talent yet. So I wish I could. But it sounds like you got a great future ahead of you, and with doing what you're doing. And I appreciate your enlightenment of people and letting people know the truth. And you're building a lot of spiritual currency, is what I call it. And when you get to the gates of heaven and or another dimension, you'll be able to pop in a lot of spiritual coins and get to a higher place. And
Yep.
that's just putting it in a funny way, whatever. But I, I want to,
Yeah, we'll see.
yeah, yeah, and I know you will, because you work with people, firefighting, you're a medic, and you've done all this stuff, and now you're working with people that are having problems or issues about accepting what has happened to them, and you plan on disclosing more and getting involved. I appreciate your work, Andrew. I really do, and I think we'll bring the show to the close on that. I probably kept you a little longer than what I guess I figured I wanted to, but it's so interesting. I mean, you're an interesting guy. Uh, my guest is Andrew Razivix, or Razzie, Andrew Razzie, and this is Dave Emmons with A Strange Reality. And I hope you enjoyed the show, and it'll be released soon. Thank you so much, Andrew, for being on the show.